Hey everybody, James Stone here, President, NorCal Guides and Sportsmen's Association, coming to you live today in mid-September, and we are going to talk about a bunch of different things today, from inland salmon to ocean salmon, what's going on with the salmon seasons, how next year looks for 2026. We're going to cover striped bass, the Fish and Game Commission meeting October 8th, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the fundraising dinner because of all of you. So we're going to wait a couple of minutes, let everybody get on live, and thank you very much for all coming. And we'll get started here momentarily in the next minute or so. I'll kind of just waste a little time and let everyone know that we got the big fundraising dinner coming up in Marysville, November 8th. It's our main fundraiser to fund our entire organization. So it's how we fund everything that we need to do. Hey, Brian, how are you? And we definitely need everyone's support. We need all the guides to donate and donate a trip. We need all of the people that can buy a table to buy a table with their business, or buy a table with friends, or attend with just buying your singles or couples tickets. But we definitely need everyone's support. That dinner is what funds this organization throughout the full year to make sure that we can do everything that we need to do for all of you. So I want to thank you to all of our donors, all our supporters, all the guides that have already donated and everything. But we're going to get going, started. So here we go. We're going to cover a lot tonight. I'm going to cover it quick because I'm tired. Just got done coaching soccer, 2 teams running for 3 hours. I'm exhausted. But here we go. So inland salmon, we'll start there kind of right off the bat. So inland salmon, we had some very limited seasons. The entire bay, the entire delta, and the entire 300 miles of the Sacramento River were completely closed and off limits to all angling completely for Chinook salmon this year for the 3rd consecutive year. So there were some minor openings of some minor tributaries. The Feather River had a section that was open from the Thermalito outlet down to Live Oak, and that just closed on September 15th, this past Monday. Now, from Live Oak down to the Nicholas Bridge, that is still open until October, so there's still some opportunity down there. Now, there is still opportunity also in the American River and the McCallum River that are still in play right now, so those are still options. All rivers this year are 1 fish limit per day and 1 fish in possession. So be aware of that. That's the first time that they've done the 1 fish possession limit. And the reason they had to do that was because everyone was put on quotas this year to make sure that we didn't harvest too many fish according to the Sacramento Index, because this was the lowest index that we've ever gone fishing on historically in the history of the state of California. So I just want everyone to know that as far as that goes. And Oregon still was fishing on our Chinook stocks. So we don't know how many fish got caught in Oregon of our Klamath and Trinity stocks, which was completely closed this year. So Klamath, Trinity was 100% closed, and there was no angling there except for tribal fisheries were obviously open. But there was absolutely no recreational river fishing, and there was no ocean fishing up there except for the 2 days in June, which there was very minor amount of fish caught up there in June. Historically, June is not the best time of year for that northern ocean area. So hopefully that kind of gives you kind of an update of where the Feather is on the inland fishing. The fishing was 1 limit. There was some pretty decent fishing, I would say, that wasn't good, but was good, good enough, better than being closed like the rest of the river and the rest of the bay and delta. So there were some people that were very happy. The top guides obviously know what they're doing, and we're putting together the best scores out there. A little bit tougher for some recreational anglers, but there was a lot of guides that were doing quite well, that fish the Feather historically really well. So if you want to get out and catch a salmon in the Feather, get out there and make sure that you can, get out there and support the guides that are out there. We need as much support as we can. And definitely want to make sure that you get out there and get the chance to go catch a salmon if you're just a recreational angler, because that's what it's all about, is trying to open up that access and opportunity inland. So make sure you get out there. Like I said, the American is coming up for the next month into October as well, and you're also going to have access to the McCallum So there's going to be some fish to be caught down in those stretches in October. So get out there, take your kids fishing, hire a guide. The guides, if you don't know what guide to hire, please go support the guides that donate to our dinner. There's a list on our website, ncgasa.org. Go to the website. You can also see it online. You can see we're commenting and thanking every one of our supporters that donates. There's a lot of guides that donate year after year. There's a lot of guides that are new donations. But please go support the guides that are supporting this organization, because they're the ones that are donating their time to fund this organization so that we can keep fighting for you. That's the whole point of the fundraising dinner, and that's the whole point of this organization. Is it's a grassroots organization that was started in 1972 as the West Coast Salmon and Steelheaders, turned into NorCal Guides in 1992. And our organization has been pushing as hard as they can since I've been president for the last 9 years to make sure that we are changing things for the good. And we've got big announcements coming at the dinner this year. It's going to be information that you are going to be so happy about. We have generational changes coming to the way that they're going to manage fisheries, from parental-based tagging to higher escapement goals coming home on the river to managed fisheries better to a little bit lower exploitation rates, which will also try to help make sure that we're managing the fishery properly, that we're targeting the amount of fish that pre-season we're supposed to be harvesting in the ocean, commercial, and inland, and we're making sure that we're following suit with the responsible manner to manage the fishery. So it's because of all of you of why we can do it. So go to ncgasa.org. If you can't come to the dinner or you can't donate, go buy a t-shirt, go buy a hat. These are the new Raise More Fish leather patch lids. They're pretty nice. We've got a lot of different stuff out there, so please. And if you want to see something new, please let us know. Message us on Facebook or message us on the email and let us know what you want. So anyhow, that covers for inland. As a lot of you know that come to my live videos a lot, I will make sure that if you want to put questions in there, I'll answer questions at the end. I'll go through them real quick. So put the question in there and then I'll go through. Ocean fishing. So ocean fishing opened for 2 days in June. There was a shorter quota of around 7,000 fish. And the total amount of fish that were caught were like 9,126, I believe was the correct number. Right around there, 9,100 and something fish. So that's how many fish were caught in the ocean in June. We went over the quota by about 25%. That shut down the rest of the days that were going to be available in July and August. That's the normal season. Then after September 1st, that's considered the fall run Chinook salmon's birthday. After September 1st, if there's ocean fisheries after September 1st, those are called credit card fisheries. Anytime we open a fishery in September, October, or November in the ocean, whatever gets caught out there counts against us next year off the top of the available amount of fish. So if next year they say at the beginning of the year, for example, we've got 250,000 fish, and in September we just found out in the 4 days that were open, commercial was closed. So in the 4 days that was open, the credit card for the recreational ocean fleet, they accrued a credit card debt of 12,000 fish out of 12,400 anglers that fished for 4 days in September. Now remember, the September fishery, they had all of the KMZ closed to protect the Klamath, all of the Fort Bragg area to protect the Klamath, and then all of Monterey Zone was closed in order to protect the winter run. So they truncated the season between below Bodega Bay. The line was right below Drake's Bay line, and then it came all the way south, right south of the Golden Gate. And so that gave opportunity to a lot of anglers, because the CPUE, the catch per unit of effort, was estimated and guesstimated by CDFW. It was just put out at 12,400 anglers participated in the fishery, and that 12,000 salmon were caught. I've had some people call me yesterday and today that were out on the ocean those 4 days and told me they believed that there was a lot more fish caught than that, but there's no real way to get an exact number because there's no way for them to monitor every single boat, every single vessel, every single port, every single ramp. That was the number that they came up with. And so because of that, same thing like June, we went over and above we went over and above on this one. Sorry, Brian, Magdalene, thank you. Monterey was open on this one. That was the line down below right there, right? We went above that a little bit, so they closed the rest of the dates for October and November. So those dates are closed. So there will be no more ocean salmon. So please, get out there and support the ocean captains. Go book a crab combo. Go book a rockfish. Go book a striper halibut. There's still other fisheries that are out there. Please get out there. Call Brian Magdalene. He's out of Sausalito. He's on here right now, so you can give him a call or one of our other captains that supports this great organization. And please get out there and support them and go book a trip with them as well out in the bay or in the ocean and go support them. So the ocean quotas are both done and full. So total, there was only 6 days offered for recreational fishing in the entire calendar year. 2 days in June, 4 days in September, and there was 9,100 fish caught here in these 2 days in the normal season, and there was 4 days in September that were 12,000 fish estimated about that. I know everyone said the fishing was much better day 1 and 2, and then it started tapering off day 3, and day 4 was difficult for some, but as you all know, the captains know what's going on out there, so make sure that you get in link with all of them if you're going to fish one of those fisheries. I will comment also that I heard that there was a lot of unsafe boating that was done in the September timeline from a few areas. And there was, a lot of people telling me that there were kayakers and a few small rafts that were constantly getting in the way of the bigger vessels. So remember your mariner rules, everyone out there, and make sure that you're reminding people that they remember that the smaller vessels must yield to larger vessels, and that they need to make sure that they're not in the way, because I heard that there was a couple of close calls, especially if it's dark or especially if it's foggy. So just make sure you guys are all being safe out there, all right? And make sure that we know what we're supposed to be doing. Remember, the most important thing is not how many fish we catch. It's that everybody gets back and gets home to their families. So hopefully that answers everything about ocean. If you got any questions, put it in the chat. So that's inland salmon. That's ocean salmon. We're done for the year for ocean, and inland's got a little bit of opportunity left in the American and the feather, the lower feather, and the McCollum in the month of October. 1 fish limit, 1 possession limit. So if you catch one day and you don't eat it or give it away, you can't go fishing the next day. Possession is in your freezer. So please make sure of that. So that kind of covers there. I'm going to cover striped bass real quick, and then I'll get back to salmon on next year for salmon. At the end, I'll do the forecast for the 2026 season at the end here. So stick around real quick. I'm not going to go more than about 10 more minutes. As I told everyone, I'm a little tired tonight, so I won't be doing my usual talk for an hour or two. But anyhow, I will remind everybody we're doing a call to action for the Fish and Game Commission meeting on October 8th. In person in Sacramento on P Street at the California Natural Resources Building. If you care about striped bass, if your business is related to striped bass, you need to be there in person October 8th. And we will have a time when we get a little bit closer. Hopefully by next week, I'll be able to get a time. And that way people don't have to sit around all day. I'm going to ask the commission to structure it so that everybody can show up, because I know everybody really wants to talk about this topic. This is the slot limit, calling for the 30-inch upper end change in the regulations. Nothing else will change. 365 days of fishing, 2 fish bag limit, 18 to 30 inches is the request. As of right now, we're being told that there's not support from the Fish and Game Commission because there was threat of a lawsuit from the southern water contractors south of the Delta. They threatened a lawsuit at the previous commission meeting in August, and they threaten the commission and the state of California that they will sue them under an EIR, EIS, which is an environmental impact review or an environmental impact study, on making that regulation change, which is complete hogwash. And it's just their way of controlling the commission, as they always do. And the commission won't argue or advocate over water or anything like that. All they're going to do is just say no to the regulation, and the striped bass population is going to continue to decline. So the only way that we stop that is everybody shows up and everybody gets there for striped bass on October 8th, Fish and Game Commission, and we show up and make sure that we have our voices heard and we tell them why we want this. The science shows that it's needed. The science shows that less than 5% of the striped bass population is currently over 30 inches. The science shows that the striped bass population is near historic lows. They believe that the lowest that it ever got was 2015 and 16 was the lowest that we ever hit in population. The 17 and 19 good water years had good cohort reconstruction. And so that's why a lot of you are catching stripers the last year, this year, and next year, and you're having good fishing. It's because there was a good spawn. But the problem is that we don't have consecutive years of year classes of that. We've only got a couple of year classes. And so it's very funny how we use that science and that same data and that same logic to say, oh, there's not enough sturgeon. We got to close sturgeon fishing. We got to list the sturgeon under the ESA. But the same data, same logic, nope, don't believe it for striped bass. The facts is, everybody, is that the science shows that all anadromous species born in freshwater go to saltwater, come back to freshwater to spawn. Anadromous. All 5 anadromous species are declining in parallel together. Common denominator, water. Water is the reason that we don't have these fish. If we don't protect the water, we don't have any protections unless the fish are listed. And then if they're listed, we can't fish for them. Winter run, spring run salmon, green sturgeon, about to be white sturgeon. So you see what this pattern is happening, folks. If they can't get control over the water, then they come after the fisheries and they start listing our fish. Once fall run gets listed, you can't fish for them either. But they will not come after striped bass, and the reason they won't come after striped bass is because that's the whole scapegoat, because if we list striped bass, then we have to face the music and admit that water is the reason that everything is dying and getting listed. Everything. So we're not going to list the striped bass. We're just going to, just threaten you that we're going to sue you as a commission if you even try to put in a form of protection. The science shows that even the 30-inch cap will not raise the population. The year of the young index for over 30 years of striped bass is never above 5. The year of the young index, for those scientists that might be on here, year of the young index has to be 15 to 20 for consecutive years in order to even see a boost in a population for striped bass in the California Delta and the California ocean system. Now, I know a lot of you might say striped bass eats salmon and that's a bad thing. Well, that's the argument of the southern water contractors, so you're falling right in their hands. But when you look at the true science and you really read hundreds and hundreds of pages of documentation, do stripers eat salmon? Absolutely. And so do bass, so do catfish, so do sturgeon, so do multiple steelhead, and so do other native species like pike minnow, hardheads, and many other things. You also have avian predation. You also have otter predation. You also have sea lions, sharks, killer whales. I mean, the list goes on and on. Everything eats salmon because salmon is what makes the ecosystem go around. Salmon is the driver of the ecosystem. So if salmon's not healthy, everything else isn't healthy. So that's what you got to understand. And I understand that some of you might not believe that the striped bass slot limit is the best thing. But if we don't, we're going to lose that fishery as well. And we've almost lost it completely. This last drought almost knocked it out. 17 and 19 saved us, but we're hanging on by a thread because the amount of fish that have been harvested over the past 2 years is very, very high. And they don't even know how many fish are out there. That's the truth. The truth, nobody even knows what the population truly is. There's zero data on it. Besides Flame, which was done by us, the same as the sturgeon. So it's the most current data. It's the most accurate data that's out there. But looking at the year of the young index scientifically shows that there's no spikes. Even in that 17 and 19 year, we hit 5%. So we really need to have some type of protection for the bigger breeders. The reasons behind that is water, but it's also contaminants in the water. There's a lot of contaminants in the water that they're finding. And if you'd like to look up those studies, go to Dr. David Ostrak, Contaminants in the Water, Striped Bass, California Delta. Type it in. He worked for UC Davis and also worked for the pathology lab for 30 plus years. You can read his papers. It's all in there. And you can read the Year of the Young indexes in there. You can read some of Dr. Cynthia LeDuc Bloom. You can read some of Dr. Tom Kammen's stuff. You can read other people's stuff. There's a lot of documentation out there. You can find it all on our website too. So everything that you always hear me say on these Zooms or lives is something that I've read, something that I've experienced, and something that I've confirmed. So if you don't believe what I'm saying, please just go to our website, ncgasa.org, buy a quick hat, and then go to the science documents page, and then read as much as you want. And if there's something you need, please just ping us on the website, ask me what you need, and we will be more than happy to direct you to the paper or the documentation so that you can educate yourself on these fisheries. I was the same way. I was a fishing guide that voluntarily started working for the organization and volunteering all my time, spending hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of hours. And then it became my job to, the board wanted me to really dive deep into these things. And they put me on every committee. I have sat on every committee for salmon and steelhead and sturgeon and striped bass in the state of California. Every committee. I've learned a lot. I've been very, very well educated from the ocean process to the escapement process to the creel surveys on the river for salmon to the steelhead report card program, which I still sit on, from the sturgeon management to the striped bass management to the water management. I feel pretty educated on these fisheries to be able to talk to you very openly and answer questions to the best of my ability. And if I don't know, I'll be the first to tell you I have no clue. Let's go find out. But there's a lot of things changing in these fisheries. And right now, you are the people that are left supporting this organization because there's no other groups left. There are a few other fishing groups that have very, very minor membership, that have very, very low funds and are not able to go higher and go do the things that are needed to be done through lobbyists, through consultants, through trips to Washington, D.C., to huge advocacy and spending the time that we need to. And so that's where your money is going, and your money is going to support our youth programs, and your money is going to make sure that we're out there fighting for you every single day and working as hard as we can for the anadromous species, as well as we're working on all the hunting sides. We sit on the board for the R&T, for CWA, for waterfowl regulations. We sit on their voting board. I'm a voting member there. We also sit on other boards when it comes to lake fishing, the Inland Chinook program, which is NorCal Guides, Kokanee Power, and SIFI. Those three groups are the groups that are working hard for all of your lakes and your inland programs, from rainbow trout, kokanee, and Chinook salmon in our lakes. So we're working on all of those things for you all. But I just wanted to remind everybody that we're very grateful for all of your support, and we couldn't be here without you. So, make sure that you support us in any way that you can, whether it's a membership, if that's all you can do, or a hat, or, if you can afford to buy a table, great. If you are a past supporter and you bought tables in the past, thank you very much. And we need your continued support more than ever right now. We want to keep this thing going. We really want to make sure that we can finish some of these big, big goals that we've been working on. Like I talked to you, we're going to announce a big one at the dinner. It's going to be huge. Everyone's going to be mind blown with what's happening. A generational change to salmon is coming, and there could be 2 or 3 generational changes coming. We are working on big macro level things so that your kids or grandkids never have to face closures like we've had, right? We've had the closures, and 7 was terrible, but 8, 9, 10 were closures. And we have now the 3rd year here in the Sacramento River, Bay, and Delta on a full closure. So we're going to make sure that doesn't happen. So leading into that, how do you support us? Go to ncgasa.org, sign up for the dinner. The dinner is November 8th in Marysville. It's sold out every year. There's about 200 tickets left right now. So there's only about 25 tables or individual tickets. It doesn't matter how those 200 tickets sell. Once they're sold, we're sold out. So remember, we take care of all the kids. They always get spoiled with free gifts every year. We give away lifetime licenses to the kids every year at the dinner. So the more people that show up and the higher the tables that are bought and sponsored, we put a portion of that money into our youth program, which kicks back directly into lifetime licenses. So in the last 9 years, we've given away roughly over about $100,000. It's a little over $10,000 a year in lifetime licenses. And I'm really happy to tell everybody that, because that is something that no other organization does. We physically write checks to CDFW, California Department of Fish and Wildlife. This year, I think they're $1,200, like $1,175. And we write those checks and we give them to the kids. And we do a drawing. I think last year we had like 7 kids got free lifetime licenses forever. But it's been over $100,000 over the last 9 years. So that's what we're doing. And that's what it's about. We're trying to make monumental changes in policy, monumental changes in legislation, trying to change the way that the regulations work so that they're better for you as the angler and your family. And then we are going to work as hard as we can for you. We haven't given up and we won't give up until we accomplish our goals. And that's because of you. And I just want to thank you all. And I just want you all to know that. So thank you. There's some other huge things that we're doing. We've got up to 14 million extra fish going to be raised at the Coleman National Fish Hatchery this year. It's huge for a 10-year program. Over 140 million fish, salmon, going to be raised at the hatchery for you. And those are going to be they're going to be multiple diversity releases. We're going to be doing fry programs. We're going to be reseeding the river into the riffles, just like one of our founding members and I worked on. Robert Dunn and I worked on it for years. We finally got it. We're finally getting fish put on the riffles as fry. We're finally getting the fry program back, which was stopped in 1999. So that's all great news. I mean, just huge. I mean, there's a lot of things like that. The Feather River is starting to raise 3 million spring run, even though we can't catch them. That's great because they used to only raise 1 million. Our group got them to come back up to 2. Now it's at 3. Now you're starting to talk. It could start producing enough fish to once again get that fishery open in the Feather River. That's a goal of mine, everybody. And I've told you that for many years. I'm going to keep fighting for that one too. We need to get that open because the ocean catches a few spring run out there, but there's no real exploitation rate. And we need to be able to have some access to the fish. And here's why. This year, there was 17 or 18,000 spring run that returned to the Feather River. That's an amazing amount. They only need 3,000 fish to get all their eggs. So why wouldn't we, now that we have that counting weir, if we get 3, 4, 5,000 fish up there, why wouldn't we shut that weir, offer a fishery below? They're all hatchery fish. They're all for mitigation. I understand they're listed under the ESA threatened, but that is not hurting the population of fish if we are allowed to angle some, because they don't want 15,000 fish up in the low flow because they superimposition. They spawn over the top of each other, and then the fall run comes right in over the top of them, and they spawn right on the top of them, and it's just a nightmare. And that's why we have a lot of sprawl fish, half spring, half fall. They mix their alleles, which I don't have a problem with it, but the geneticists do. And so from that standpoint, there needs to be a segregation weir up there, which is in the 2007 settlement agreement for the FERC relicensing. Actually, myself and the other industry leaders met with DWR today, talking about a lot of programs that are going to start happening. The governor's salmon plan has really called out the DWR and the feather to do a lot of fixes. So we're working on all of those. As some of you know, some other huge accomplishments on the feather. We're going to be getting a brand new Orville Thermalito outlet ramp. I helped design it with the engineers 2 years ago with CDFW and DWR and the consultants, and we're getting ready to break ground on that next year. So get ready for that. We're going to have a whole brand new area up there. It's going to have new launch ramps, camping sites, bathrooms, everything except security gates and fish cleaning station, which were two of the things that I really asked for, everyone. For all of you that fish up there know, you want your truck safe and you want a spot to clean fish. Couldn't get those two things, mainly because of power, because of electricity. But we'll still work on those for the future. We also got $5 million grant that is going, 100% of that grant is going from DWR to Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency, and they're going to be reworking the low flow channel above Robinson Riffle to reconstruct that low flow channel to get it how it used to be pre-97 flood, which is huge. So that was done by a past board member and I years ago that we worked on that, and that $5 million grant is coming into play, and you're going to start seeing construction in the low flow soon of the Feather River, so be aware of that. That's what they're doing up there, and they're going to be fixing that once and for all to divert most of the flow into the actual channel and not divert it into Robinson Pond, because we feel that a lot of our baby fry are going into that Robinson Pond, and they're getting eaten by the largemouth in that pond and that warm water fishery that is locked, and it's tough for them to get out once they get into that little pond area. So another great accomplishment. So I don't want to bore you all with all the other stuff that we're working on, but the list hasn't stopped. You can go to the website and see a list of the most recent accomplishments of this organization. We're advocating for everything from water to new hatcheries. We're working on the Livingston Stone new hatchery right now below Shasta Dam. We're excited to announce that there's going to be some fall run production in there with spring run production in there for the first time on the Sacramento River, as well as winter run production. That's huge because the current facility only raises winter run. So we're going to add those two other runs to there. So that's going to be great. We think groundbreaking will start around 27 on that. We should be fully up and running hopefully by 29. By 2032, you're going to start seeing a ton of fish coming pile back. I understand that's 7 years away, but that's a short timeline considering salmon. Remember, everything we do today affects 3 years later. So everything we did in 2022 is affecting us today in 2025. Everything we do this fall and winter of 25 and spring will affect us in the 2028 season. So you got to always remember that. We're always lapsed 3 years. There's no quick fixes to salmon, anything we can do. Steelhead, it's like the same thing. Striper, it's almost the same thing too, because striper don't mature. Males don't hit 18 inches until 3 years old. Females, 20 inches. 4, 5, 6 years old till they can spawn fecundity, 24, 26, 28 inches. And if those fish aren't spawning, then that population continues to crash too. Sturgeon takes them 9 years to get to fecundity. So 9 years to get to that slot limit, that 40 inch to 60 inch, which it used to be 9 to 17 years old. So that's why the 2017 fish are just starting to enter the slot right now. But there is no harvest on white sturgeon right now. I will go to that. So now I'll get to 2026 forecast for salmon, and then I'm going to answer questions and then get off here. So where are we at right now? Well, I can tell you this. Everything that we saw in the ocean in June was really good. We saw a good diversity of fish being caught. All the captains that I talked to saw a really good diversity of fish being caught. 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds. Really good. Looked beautiful. Fish that were from 6 pounds all the way to 30-something pounds. So that's really positive, right? Because we have multiple year classes. That means that we're not just waiting on one set of 1 year class, right? Because fish do come in at 2-year-olds as jacks, 3 and 4, and used to be 5. You could even see 6 back in the old days. The 5-year-olds are pretty much killed off genetically. I'm hoping that we can find a way to get more 5-year-olds. Some scientists believe that if we hold our hatchery fish too long to smolt, that we get more jacks and more 3-year-olds and less 4-year-olds. So there's a theory behind that hypothesis that if we let go more fry and we put more fry into the system, they might spend that 4th year or that 5th year in the ocean and then come back. So we could start seeing some bigger fish here move in these next couple years because we've been doing the fry program the last few years. The other big announcement is PBT, parental-based tagging, which is changing the way that these fisheries are going to be managed. And that's one of the things we're going to announce here very soon. But we've been talking about it because we've been working on it. We've been to multiple conferences, meetings. It's already being implemented in the Pacific Northwest and in Idaho. And parental-based tagging, just remember, is like Ancestry.com. It's basically the genetics of the fish. So if you remember, like when you swab your tongue, you send it in, it tells you where you're from, right? Same thing for salmon. We cut the tails on them in the hatchery, the male, the female. We put those genetics up. Then we let go their babies. Now we don't have to wait for the code wire tag to get put in their head in order to be released, right? And that's the problem with this, is that every year we're sitting in the hatcheries waiting for the fish to grow to a certain size. They finally get there in March, April. Then we stick the tag in their head, and now the river is way too hot, way too low, and it's full of stripers. And then we drop them right on top of their heads, and then everyone gets upset. So PBT is going to change all of that, because parental-based tagging means that we now have a way to monitor those fish, and now we can release them at any life cycle. We can release them at fry, par, subsmolts, smolts. You can release them whenever you want. You don't have to wait. You just release them and let them go. Then when they get caught, they'll take the tissue sample and they'll compare that genetic data to the parents that we have in the system, and then they will ping. Oh, that fish was caught right here off Fort Bragg. It came from parents from the Feather River. And it was released on this group that was released this date. Same way you monitor through the code wire tags and the clipped fish. Right now, the requirement by NIMS is 25% of our fall run have to be clipped, and 25% have to have a code wire tag in their head. So Coleman has 12 million fish. 3 million are clipped. 3 million have the code wire tag in their head. But there's still 12 million fish out there. So just because you catch a fish with a fin doesn't mean it's a wild fish. It's a hatchery fish that's strayed, or a hatchery fish that wasn't clipped, or it's a hatchery fish that strayed 3 years ago in the river, and when it was in the river, it spawned, and now it's considered a natural fish, right? Because it has a fin. So PBT is going to change all of that. So the forecast looks great because of that right there. And I had to say that because the 2026 forecast looks so good, because we saw 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds. I was invited by Johnny Atkinson, New Ray and Sport Fishing. Make sure you give him a call, get him booked. He's got a lot of great trips right now. Some killer rockfish and some other stuff going on. So give Johnny a call. All the boys out there in Sausalito are on fish right now for sure. But call all your captains out there and get out to that ocean. But Johnny invited me out to a study, which you can go back or go to our YouTube channel and check it out. Subscribe to that. Punch the subscribe, but you can check out the video there. I went live on Johnny's boat, and we were doing the huge study. I've been invited to it 3 years in a row, and this is the first year I finally was able to put it in my schedule to get out there, and it was super cool. Catching big king salmon, putting live acoustic tags on them, and then on the boat, and then letting them go. So you can watch the video on our YouTube channel, and then Tracy will put the link in the comments of this video, and you can go back and click the links, and then that will take you to the NOAA website, and you can live track these fish right now. The last I looked 2 nights ago, I think there was 21, I believe, or 22 fish that came through Benicia out of 97 tagged fish. So you can see them live, and there was like 10 or 11 that were already past Sacramento, and there were a couple that were already moving into the McCollum. So really cool stuff. It's reverse migration tracking live, and everybody gets to see it. So it's super cool and lots of fun. So go check that out. We'll put the link in this video and in the comments, but I think you can see the link on the YouTube video as well. So, but when we did that study, we caught a lot of shorts, like 1-year-olds and 1.5-year-olds, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and maybe one that was even could have been a 5-year-old. So again, it really showed us how big that year class was. And then the September fishery, a lot of fish have already started moving into the Sacramento and into the Feather. But the September fishery, we started seeing tons of fish in September, 2, 3, 4-year-olds all over the place. So this is a great sign, you guys, for next year. A great sign for 2026. I'm expecting to see a much higher abundance. I'm expecting to see a much bigger season offering in the ocean. I'm hoping that we have a higher enough abundance that it will be worth the commercial fleet to be able to go fishing. And I'm hoping that we are going to see more of the inland fishery open, because we're 95% closed down right now for 3+ years. So I'm hoping that we're going to see it. Even though the inland fishing's been closed down for 3 years, many of us feel like it's been closed for like 15 years, because the last time we had good fishing, which was good fishing. When I say good fishing, I'm saying the last time the average person had an opportunity to go launch their boat, spend hundreds of dollars in fuel, bait, tackle, and everything, and go out on the water and have a chance, an average recreational angler, have a chance at catching one, was probably 15 years ago. I mean, that's not that long, 13 years ago, where we're at, 12 and 13. Those were the last 2 years that you saw so many boats on the rivers. You were like, whoa, where are all these jet boats? I've never seen these boats. The only people that are fishing are the people that are the hardcore anglers, the anglers that really know salmon well, and the guides that are trying to scrap together a business. But the reality is it's been terrible on the river. 2019 or 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023 was closed, 2024 closed, 2025 closed. So it's just consistently getting worse and worse and worse on the Sacramento main stem system. Now, the reason that the Sacramento hasn't rebounded as fast as the Feather and the American and the McCallum is because the Feather and the American and the McCallum raise their fish in the hatchery on main stem water. So when those fish are trucked, they generally, not always, but they generally return at a pretty good rate of 50% or better. The Feather has the best trucking rates, where you only sometimes have stray rates of 7 to 20%. So the majority of those fish are returning to the Feather when they're trucked. So that's why that works on those systems. But in 14 and 15, when we trucked fish from Coleman, 98% 1 year strayed and never came home to the Sacramento, and the next year 99% strayed. And so we know that trucking them from Battle Creek water, Coleman, does not work. So that's why those fish, we're trying to experiment. Can we move them down the river? Can we get them to Butte City and they still come back? The answer is yes. We already did the studies for multiple years. We proved the proof of concept. So that's why we started doing that. And a lot of you were mad, and a few of you went on social media and started saying, look at them, they're dropping them all over the stripers, and that's terrible management. Well, the reality is those people felt bad, and the hatchery managers and the hatchery workers, because they're doing everything they can to build salmon back. And they know that releasing them at Coleman at Battle Creek is not successful. So they're trying to move them down to Colusa, move them down to Butte City when they can. The problem, as I told you earlier, is that the timing is not lining up. The fish have to get big enough to get that tag in their head and then to get released. Unfortunately, that always is in April and May. It doesn't work. And I've been telling them that, and they're trying to do their best. And we're very thankful to Coleman for everything they're doing and everything that they're moving forward. We're really excited for the future. Coleman is really stepping up and really pushing as hard as they can to make sure that we have better fisheries. So what I think is going to happen is, this is a guess, pure guess, and I normally don't do guesses, so I'm not going to give you specific numbers, but I will give you a guess right now. Once we have the escapement numbers in, which will be December, January, we'll know how many fish come back to the Sac, Feather, Yuba, American, right? Those are the only rivers that count. We're managed on those. McCallum, San Joaquin, all of those, Stanislaus, anything out in the Delta, all those creeks, Napa, Puda, all that, none of those count. None of those count for our management. It's just wasted, right? They have to come back to the Sac, Feather, American, and the Yuba. They have to come back to one of those four. Those are the only four that count, mainly count towards it. Now, the tributaries on the Sacramento count, so if they go to Deer Creek, Mill Creek, Killer Creek, that all counts. That's good. That's Sacramento River. and the same, and we're managed on that. And then we're also managed on the Klamath and the Trinity. So whatever comes back to the Klamath and the Trinity, that matters. So you're managed on the Klamath Trinity, you're managed on the Sacramento system, those two, and then you are micromanaged by NIMS, NOAA, on all the ESA in the ocean. So you've got to see which stock is the constraining stock. Is it the Klamath Trinity or is it the Sacramento? And then we have to avoid the winter run, the spring run, and the coastal Chinooks. And you have to move the fleet up and down throughout the state and try to find access and opportunity for your people. That's what happens every year in March and April. So, predictions. My gut tells me that I'm hoping to see a minimum of a 6-week ocean recreational salmon season. I'm hoping. I would say that is kind of realistic. I think that could get us through 2 full moons. I think that could get us through some really good fishing. I think that could get a lot of people from going bankrupt. I think that could be really good for our coastal communities. I know that's not a 180-day season. I'm hoping that we get a 180-day season, but we don't know what those abundances are. So we don't know where that number is until we get the escapement numbers. So once we get those escapement numbers, then we can kind of guess with the jack numbers of where that number is going to be, and that will dictate how much fishing that we should be able to go do out in the ocean, how much commercial fishing will be allowed, and then that will dictate how many fish will come home and how good the river fishing will be according to that modeling. So I also think there's a good chance of getting the Sacramento River open next year for inland fishing. I would say that if anything, it will probably be a lower limit. If there was differences in limits, I would say that you probably are going to see the department or people advocate for a 1-fish limit if the Sacramento even opened up. We are going to try to see if we can get that opened up and get that back going so that there's equal access for all communities from the Bay, Delta, and the entire Sacramento River. And then I would say that if the numbers are high enough in the preseason abundance numbers that we'll all find out in the end of February, I would then say that you probably will see maybe a 2-fish limit come back or in the Feather American. And then I would definitely think next year you'll see a 2-fish limit in the McCollum because the McCollum doesn't count towards management. So it doesn't matter what happens to the McCollum as long as they get enough fish back to get their eggs. And a huge shout out to the McCollum because they've been raising extra fish every single year for all of you. And those extra fish they're even raising, they're moving them up to the Sacramento. They're moving fish, raising fish down below and moving them all the way up for all of you, your kids and your grandkids and your businesses. So big shout out. So again, I think that's it. I got bugs flying all around me. But anyway, thank you to everybody. Thank you to all of our guides. Thank you to our donors, our sponsors. We need you. Please support us. Go to the website, ncgasa.org. Sign up for a table. Sign up for tickets. Sign up to donate something. Buy a hat. Do anything you can to support us. We appreciate you. We're going to keep fighting for you. I expect that the future is bright. I think that there's going to be a lot more positive fishing in the future. We are at the bottom on striped bass right now. October 8th, Fish and Game Commission meeting. Be there. Make sure you're there for striped bass. Sturgeon, we'll talk sturgeon another day, but we're still fighting behind the scenes for you all on that. And we're working on that. Steelhead we're working on. There's talk about moving the program and raising more steelhead on the Sacramento River and building back that fishery too. So there's a lot of support and a lot of people wanting to do good things. And this organization is leading that fight. So the only reason that we're able to accomplish so much and work every day tirelessly is because of all of you. So please continue to support us in everything you can do. I'm going to run through the questions real quick. Type in last call. Type in any questions that you have. Here we go. I'm going to read through them real quick. Hello, guys. Shout outs. Lights out. Donate a trip in Washington next year. Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Awesome. Yeah, if you can do anything, let us know. There's a way to donate now. All donations for the dinner this year, November 8th, are for next year's trips for 2026. So if you could do anything, thank you. Can't do it till next year. Thank you very much. We appreciate all your support. No salmon yet on the American. Yeah, they've been cooking the river. Yes. Okay. They're releasing water at 6,000 in July, and now it's at 1,600. Great point, Harris. So let me make a comment about that. So what the Bureau of Reclamation does, and I do not agree with this. I just had 3 meetings about this month talking about the American River water, and I think I have a meeting on Monday about American River water. So, but you have the American River. They use a lot of that water to supplement the water that's coming out of Shasta Reservoir through the CVPIA, Central Valley Improvement Act. So that water's going to Southern California. That's why it's 6,000 in July. Okay? That's why. It's all going to Southern California. It's gone. They're shipping the water out. It's out of here. Okay? Now, then they go, oh, we're running out of water. So they shut the valve off to 1,600. And then all of our fall run Chinook come back and they cook them. And they've been cooking them for decades. 2 decades they've been cooking them. And we've advocated and argued this for years. And they all tell us, well, we only have a limited amount of cold water pool in Folsom Dam because they drained half of it. And then they say, well, we only have a little bit of cold water. We have to give that cold water to the hatchery. Well, the hatchery, because all the run has been getting killed off in the American River every single year. We used to get fish back on the American in June and July. For those of us that lived in Sacramento and used to fish the American, I know firsthand. We even had fish back earlier than that. I mean, 25 years ago in the 2000s, but the early run time. We had those fish in the American River in that July, August, September timeline, and those fish should be there and should be catchable, but they've been killed off. The genetic is gone. The allele's gone for those fish that return at that time. We have systematically killed off the front half of that run on the American River. And now all you get is the last half of that. And that's why, is because those fish are not going to come back to that water in full force at 1,600 CFS. So they'll stray into the McCollum or they'll stray into another river generally. But that's why they're going to turn the water back up here, not till November. So everything that comes back right now, there's going to be a lot of pre-spawn mortality. There is every single year there. We don't even know what it is, though. We don't know how many fish die. I would say some years it's in the thousands. Other years it's in the hundreds. But fish are dying in the American River because of hot water. 75, 80 degrees in the American River. It's just ridiculous. So that temperature is unacceptable. But because there's no protection for the fall run under the Endangered Species Act, there's nothing you can do about it. And that's the sad thing. So that's what ends up happening, is that your environmental groups then come and then they try to list the fish so that they can control the water over the water districts and over the Southern California water users. But what does that do to us as anglers? That stops fishing. So hopefully that explains the American River deal. That's why they're doing it. And then they're going to up the flows as soon as it gets time for November, when the hatchery opens its ladders, starts taking fish in, and then they'll shoot more cold water down the river so that hopefully a few fish will spawn in November, December. But that's why you're seeing fish spawn as late as December in the American River, which historically was 2 months earlier. Hopefully that answers it. Ken Smith, what's up, brother? Got some news to talk to you. Hit me up on a message. You're not going to believe it. Pretty crazy. Fire stuff. Brian, thank you. Brian McGinty, we would know exactly the real numbers, how many fish were killed in the ocean if they did live time, real time tagging system like an app like Oregon does. So I agree. There needs to be better systems put in place for harvest. There also needs to be better systems put in place for escapement. There's a lot of chatter right now in the fishing community about the Klamath and putting a counter or a Ditson monitor or something at the spit, so that we can start really finding out how many fish are coming into the Klamath River. We need to know. We don't know. And the numbers that are reported of harvested fish are very, very hard to come by, and some years not even reported. So we need to make sure that we are truly getting the accurate numbers and comparing those to our preseason abundance, following the science, following the data, following the correct harvest control rule, and making sure that we get access. But Chinook salmon is fully closed on those rivers. I saw another comment from Tracy that said that fishing is open on the Klamath rivers for steelhead and other stocks, but Chinook salmon take or possession or intent to fish for Chinook salmon is fully closed. I also see the salmon tagging link that I talked to you all about. It's on the comments, so you can see the tagging. on the YouTube link and follow along live. Please, if you're looking for the guides that donated to support them, there's a link in the comments. Make sure you go check that out. Hello, Linda. Hello, Steve. Hope you're doing well. Hope you got your omegas, dude. Joseph, so why don't those count for management? Makes no sense. Okay, great question. I assume, Joseph, your question is talking about the McCollum, Stanislaus, and all those other systems. Great question. So in the old days, they all did count. It was called the Central Valley, the CV, okay, index, the CVI. So it was the Central Valley Index, and it was all the stocks. So it was the Sac, Feather, American, McCollum, Yuba, San Joaquin, Stanislaus, Tuolumne. They all counted, and it was one big index, okay? And then you had almost full exacerbation or extinction of salmon in the San Joaquin because they pumped it dry. There was no water in the river, no fish returning, multiple decades in a row. They all died. This was all in the 80s and 90s. There's still pending litigation on it from many different groups about that litigation for rebuilding that San Joaquin system that has been completely ruined. And so they're trying to rebuild those systems. But until those systems contribute enough fish, they took that piece of the McCollum and San Joaquin system out of the management tool because it wasn't giving a true justification of the Sacramento stocks and how much damage we were doing to the Sacramento stocks. So in 2007, I believe, is when that changed, and it went to the SI, which is just the Sacramento index. And that's why it's only those four rivers: Sac, Feather, American, Yuba. Those are the four main rivers that matter for our management now. If those numbers ever come back on the San Joaquin, I would say you would see a shift of maybe a Central Valley index again, or you would see a Sacramento index and a Central Valley index and a Klamath index, just like we do now. But that's why you don't have those rivers count, because if we counted those rivers, you wouldn't be fishing because those fish are gone. So we're doing everything we can to save the fish in the Sacramento Valley, because if we don't save these ones, it could be many years until we all go fishing, and none of us want that. So great question. David, thank you. Good to hear from you, bud. Hopefully see you at the dinner this year. November 8th, Marysville. Get your tickets. Klamath. Dave, another comment. Great comment. Klamath is looking pretty good. There's a lot of fish. We don't know how many fish have come back above. We also missed our numbers at the new Fall Creek hatchery this past year. Supposed to take up to like 3.54 million eggs, and they only raised like a few 100,000 fish. So nothing came back because everything just kept swimming. So they said like a few hundred fish swam past the hatchery and continued their way up towards Oregon, which is all a great thing. But if we don't get our brood stock at our hatchery at Fall Creek, that's not a good thing. So we only get 7 more years of that mitigation, and then the state has to decide whether to keep it open and fund it and budget it or to close it. And I would say currently under this leadership, I would probably make a bet in Vegas that they're going to close it. They're not the biggest hatchery fans on other systems, especially that system, because there's a path forward with the dam removal in order to get a natural spawning population back up and going. The Sacramento system's completely different. Those dams are never going anywhere. That habitat is completely, utterly destroyed. And the water is 3 out of 10 years. If we're lucky, we have good water for good spawning for cohorts. So, but overall, I think the Klamath's looking a lot better. I think the Trinity's looking pretty good too. And I think 3 years, we should see a full rebound. And I'm hoping that we will have maybe some access next year in the Klamath Trinity. But above where the dams are removed, we've been told it'll be 10 to 15 years until we have any access inland for Chinook salmon up above the dams where they were. They will be keeping those areas closed for at least 5 generations, at least 4 to 5 generations, times 3. So that gets you to that 15 years in order to fully rebuild that upper area. But I think there might be some other access. So, yeah, thank you. So there are some good access. So if you want to get out Chinook salmon fishing in the coast, you could call our board member, Kenny Priest. He's up there fishing the North Coast. Give him a buzz. He's available. He's fishing the eel, catch and release. He's fishing the Smith, which has take. So you can take there. And he's doing steelhead trips as well on the other rivers, to where you might accidentally run into a Chinook, but they're targeting steelhead on some other rivers. So make sure you get Kenny a call and get out there on the North Coast. Big supporter of this organization for many, many years. All right, Mike Cronin, fantastic work, great summary, made a big difference, and would love to call, and I can't see the rest of your comment, meet you over the phone. Graduated HSU, 97, worked with TU over 40 years. Sounds good, Mike. Yeah, I work with a lot of people from TU, so I know a lot of others from TU, but yeah, feel free to give me a call. Shoot me an email, jstone@ncgasa.org, and we'll get together, Mike. Thanks. Thank you for your service, and thank you for everything you do. East Bay Mud, not going to release as much pulse flows this year. BS. Yeah, we just wrote a letter on that, Kevin. So the entire salmon, good comment. Kevin Jaime, I hope you're doing well, brother. We just wrote a letter on that. PCFFA, the commercial fleet, GFFA, Golden Fishermen's Association, the charter boat fleet, GGFA, Golden Gate Fishermen's Association, the charter boat fleet, GGFA, and NorCal Guides, our organization, the three organizations that represent the entire salmon industry. Our groups all wrote a letter and to East Bay Mud, and that East Bay Mud was talking about releasing some water and advocating to release some water to allow more fish to come home to the McCallum for one, prevent less strain, and also get all more eggs. So there's another thing that we're all working on together for you all, but we have you covered on that. Great comment. Thank you for that. Michael, and I'm wrong to think that the stripers are one of the elephants in the room. I think that, I think that historically, if you look at all of the data and you look at all the science, they all rise and flow together. Steelhead, stripers, sturgeons, and salmon all go up in parallel. They all drop in parallel. And historically, stripers are surviving better than salmon, steelhead, and sturgeon because those are, needing more of that cold water than the stripers need. And they're a little bit more temperature, resilient, and they can survive in some of those warmer temperatures. But a lot of people are complaining because those stripers are moving further up the river systems because they can't live in that 80-degree water down in Sacramento. It just nukes them. So they're pushing further up. And instead of historically staying between Sacramento and Calusa through May and June, some of those breeder fish have to move up to find clearer water that I think's less contaminated and that's cleaner for their spawning, because the contamination reports are really terrible. But we'll talk more offline. Really appreciate your comments. Thank you. Chris Schertz, big supporter. Give Chris Schertz a call. Guide that's been supporting this organization way longer than me. He's been part of it for, I think, 40 years. So Chris Schertz, give him a call. CNA Guide Service. Give Chris Schertz a call. Get out on his boat. One of the best salmon steelhead fishermen in this valley. Make sure. Catch and reel us forever. Thank you, Andre. That's a good comment. Anthony Cox. Thanks, James Stone. You're welcome, Anthony Cox. There's our regional program manager and guide, big guide on the McCallum River. You want to get on his boat, make sure you give Anthony Cox a call. 100% now in Fresno. They have a small run and doing a salmon project, but it's very small. Yeah, exactly, Joseph. It's so small, that run, that we can't ever get it up, but we got to build that run up. We got to get those numbers up. Theoretically, I'd love to see a hatchery. I'd love to partner with all the southern water contractors and say, let's build a state-of-the-art hatchery on the San Joaquin. Let's build it down on the bottom. Let's rear them on main stem water. Let's truck them out to the ocean. Boom, right there. We raised 25 million fish on the San Joaquin. Boom, now you're talking another 500,000 at a 2% survival rate. 500,000 fish out in the ocean every single year. That's going to help solve a lot of problems, take a lot of stress off the Sacramento and Klamath stocks as well. Remember, the more fish we have out in the ocean puts more marbles in the jar so that when we dip in with our rods, we don't catch listed species. We don't want to catch the listed ones. We want to catch the ones we're allowed to keep. So let's put some more fish out there. Let's put more fish in that big old ocean out there. Let's get those fish. Let's raise more fish. That's our philosophy right now. It's the last hope for salmon. Otherwise, it's gone. Thank you for the education. Joseph, you're very welcome. Santa Cruz area, we'll talk more about that, but Santa Cruz had some good fish. There was some guys that got them off Santa Cruz, Half Moon Bay. I heard some good reports out there. Moke water's way too warm still, Anthony says. There seems to be a scheduled water release out of the reservoir at this time. I'm hoping the letter kicks in, and then October 1st, you see another release, Anthony. So hopefully that will give you that cold water you need to really draw those fish in there. Get on Anthony Cox's boat. Make sure you get out their AC guide service. Salvador Puga, maybe they lost their way. Catch kings in San Joaquin while trolling for stripers. Yeah, and that's normal. So they do get lost, right, from trucking. They don't all imprint. Some of the fish from the McCallamy stray at 50%. Some from the American stray at 50%. Some from the American 20%. Some from the feather, 15%, 5%. So those fish are going to go everywhere, right? They'll go to Napa River. They'll go to Walnut Creek. Down in Martinez, they'll come in. They'll go to the, I think I said Napa. They'll go to Puda. They'll go up the Deepwater Channel. They'll end up in Stockton, up canals, because they smell something that they think is where they're supposed to go, and they'll hit dead ends. And as long as there's water still coming in that dead end, even if it's out of a pipe and just barely flowing, they're going to stay there and die. So that's the negative about trucking fish, is that, if we didn't truck fish, we wouldn't even have a fishery at all, because there would be zero survival because the rivers have killed everything. But if by trucking fish, we are facing that consequence. But as managers, we need to realize that, and we need to adjust our techniques, adjust our releases, adjust our genetic programs to make sure that we can provide the biggest, strongest fish, the genetically purest fish, as well as the strongest fish and the best releases for survival, contribution, and returns. So those are the three main things that we advocate for there. All great questions, you guys. Coleman raised fish differently than the Moke and AR because they are a federal hatchery, and the Moke, the American River, and the Feather are all state-run hatcheries. So the federal government owns the hatchery at Nimbus. They own it, but it's managed and operated by the state. So the state hatcheries are operating a certain way through their HGMPs and their policies, and then the feds run a completely different way. So we'll get more into that another time. I'm already an hour, 7 minutes. Jason Wiggum, thank you. Everything you do. Make sure you get out with Jason Wiggum, another great guide. You want to catch salmon, that's the guy to go with. His dad is one of our founding members from 1972, Mr. Bob Wiggum, retired guide. I think 44 years, I believe, he operated on the Sacramento River. Amazing man, but get out with Jason. Jason can catch him the best. His dad even says he can outfish his old man. So, hey, Jason, hope you're doing well. Thank you for all your support. Thank you for everything you do for our fishery. And thank you for all your donations over the years to the organization. And please help us spread the word. We need support this year as usual. They just started one at Friant. Yeah, Joseph, that's the small one. I'm talking a big production one, but yep. Raise more fish, the best idea every year. Yep. I think that's all the comments, everyone. Hour, 8 minutes. I didn't expect to speak that long. I'm sorry I talked too long. Always coming to you with the best, the most latest information. And I hope all of you, and I'm losing light, I hope all of you have a wonderful weekend. Go fishing with your kids. But before you go fishing with your kids, go to ncgasa.org and support us. Thank you all. Good night. God bless. We'll talk to you all real soon.